He thought Evlyn was helpless, so he dumped her bags in the rain, not knowing the woman carrying his child was a billionaire heiress. Rain poured like judgment from the sky as Evlyn stood frozen on the pavement, both hands wrapped protectively around her pregnant belly. Her dress clung to her body, soaked and heavy, but it was nothing compared to the weight in her chest. Behind her, 2 suitcases lay abandoned in a growing puddle, everything she owned tossed aside by the man who once promised to love her. Daniel didn't look back. To him, Evlyn was a burden, a mistake, a woman with nothing left to offer. Jeff stood nearby, watching in silence, while neighbors whispered and strangers stared. Some shook their heads, others filmed. No one stepped in. What none of them knew, what Daniel never bothered to ask, was who Evlyn really was. She wasn't broke, she wasn't desperate, and she definitely wasn't powerless. Evlyn was hiding a truth so dangerous it could destroy Daniel's world in a single phone call. A truth tied to boardrooms, private jets, and a family name that commanded fear and respect in every elite circle. As the rain soaked her hair and blurred her vision, Evlyn made a silent decision, one that would turn humiliation into revenge and abandonment into the biggest regret of Daniel's life. Because when the truth comes out, the man who dumped her bags will wish he never touched them. Rain turned the street into glass. It slid down Evlyn's skin, soaked her hair, darkened the soft fabric of her dress until it clung to every curve of her body. Her belly was round and unmistakable now, heavy with the child she had carried quietly, carefully, lovingly. Without ever asking Daniel for tenderness, he no longer knew how to give. 2 suitcases lay at her feet. Daniel had thrown them hard enough that one cracked open. Clothing spilled into the water, silk, cotton, a pale blue dress he once liked on her because it made her look expensive enough to stand beside him. Now he sneered at it. "Pick them up," he said, "or leave them, I don't care anymore." Evlyn didn't move. Her hands rested on her belly, thumbs brushing slow, protective circles. The baby shifted, unsettled by the cold, the noise, the tension vibrating through her mother's body. Daniel noticed and rolled his eyes. "Don't start with that," he snapped. "You're always performing. Always acting fragile." Fragile. The word hit harder than the rain. Behind him, Jeff stood near the building entrance, soaked but silent. He avoided Evlyn's eyes. Cowardice had always been his strongest instinct. A few neighbors watched from under umbrellas. Phones were out. Judgment hovered in the air. Evlyn finally looked at Daniel, really looked at him. The man she married had once traced her spine slowly in the dark, fingers lingering like he was memorizing her. He used to kiss her like he had time, like he wasn't in a hurry to become someone else. Now his eyes skimmed her body with irritation instead of desire. "You don't even ask why," she said softly. Daniel laughed. "Ask why what? Why you've become a burden?" Kim's voice echoed in his head, sharp, approving. "Pregnancy makes women lazy. Careful you don't let her trap you." "You think I don't see it," Daniel continued. "The way you cling, the way you expect things. I didn't sign up to carry dead weight." Evlyn's lips parted slightly. For a moment, just a moment, she remembered the nights he pressed her into the mattress, breath heavy, voice low, telling her she felt like home. That memory. Before the rain, there had been heat. Not the kind that burned wildly, but the slow consuming warmth of 2 people learning each other's bodies in silence. Evlyn remembered it clearly, the way Daniel used to touch her as if she was something rare. His hands had once lingered, curious and reverent, tracing her skin like he was afraid she might disappear if he rushed. Back then, desire made him gentle. They met when Daniel was still hungry in the right way. Ambitious, yes, but not yet cruel. Evlyn had liked that about him. The hunger, the fire. She mistook it for depth. In the beginning, Daniel loved how Evlyn listened. She didn't interrupt, didn't compete, didn't challenge his ego. She asked questions about his goals, his frustrations, his childhood. She lay beside him afterward, her back to his chest, absorbing the rhythm of his breathing like it was a language only she spoke. Sex with Evlyn wasn't loud. It was intense in a quieter way. Daniel used to pull her close after, pressing his forehead to her neck, breathing her in like he needed proof he was still human. But success changed the shape of his desire. As promotions came, tenderness left. He started touching her differently, not to feel her, but to take. The pauses disappeared, the eye contact faded. Sex became something he did to release pressure, not build connection. Evlyn noticed. Of course she did. She noticed when he stopped kissing her before undressing her. When his hands grew impatient. When he finished and rolled away without a word. Still, she said nothing. Because Evlyn had been raised to understand men like Daniel. Men who equated dominance with worth. Men who confused control with strength. When she got pregnant, the shift became impossible to ignore. Her body softened, slowed, changed. Daniel's touch followed suit, less frequent, more distant. When he did reach for her, it was often with irritation, as if her body had betrayed him by no longer being convenient. One night, months before the rain, Evlyn tried to bridge the gap. She wore a simple silk nightdress, pale against her skin, and waited for him in bed. When Daniel entered the room, she reached for his hand. He hesitated. "You're tired," he said flatly. "I'm not," she replied. He looked at her belly then, briefly, and something cold passed over his face. "This isn't the time," he said. That was the night Evlyn understood something crucial. Daniel didn't resent the pregnancy. He resented the loss of control. Kim encouraged it. She visited often, her presence sharp and invasive. She commented on Evlyn's weight, her posture, the way she moved through the house. "You've gotten comfortable," Kim said once, watching Evlyn lower herself carefully into a chair. "Comfort makes women careless." Daniel didn't contradict her. That silence cut deeper than any insult. Later that night, Daniel touched Evlyn out of habit rather than desire. His movements were mechanical, detached. When she reached for his face, he caught her wrist and pinned it gently, but firmly, against the mattress. "Don't," he muttered. The word wasn't cruel, it was worse. It was indifferent. Evlyn lay there afterward, staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside her go still. She had shared her body with him. Her vulnerability, her future, and now even intimacy felt like a transaction he was growing tired of. What Daniel never noticed was how Evlyn watched him during these moments. Not with desperation, with study. She noticed how power aroused him more than touch, how respect mattered more than affection, how he straightened when speaking to wealthy men, softened when praised by superiors, hardened when anyone appeared dependent on him, including her. If Daniel had paid attention, he would have seen the irony forming. The woman he dismissed as weak understood power far better than he ever would. Evlyn's father had once told her, "Men who fear dependence will always abandon first." She remembered that now. The night before he threw her out, Daniel came home late. The smell of expensive cologne, too sharp, too intentional, clung to him. Evlyn didn't ask where he'd been. She already knew. He didn't touch her at all that night. He slept on the edge of the bed, turned away, as if her presence itself irritated him. In the dark, Evlyn rested her hand on her belly and felt her child move. That movement anchored her, not to Daniel, to herself. The marriage had already ended then. The rain just made it visible, and while Daniel believed he had discarded a woman who needed him, Evlyn was quietly learning how to stop needing anyone at all. Evlyn didn't cry the night Daniel threw her out, not because she wasn't hurt, but because something older and stronger than pain had taken over. She found shelter in a small hotel near the hospital, the kind designed for people passing through lives they didn't intend to stay in. The receptionist hesitated when she saw Evlyn's condition, then softened. No questions were asked. A room key slid across the counter. Inside, the silence was thick. Evlyn showered slowly, letting hot water loosen the tension locked into her muscles. She watched the steam rise, watched the rain blur the city lights outside the window, and felt something inside her settle into place. This was not collapse, this was recalibration. She lay on the bed afterward, one hand resting on her belly, the other over her heart. Her phone buzzed repeatedly on the nightstand. "Daniel." She didn't answer. By morning, the messages shifted from anger to irritation, then to a brittle kind of justification. "You forced my hand. You embarrassed me. You should have known better." Evlyn deleted them without reading twice. She went to the hospital that afternoon for a routine checkup that turned into something else entirely. Her blood pressure was high, the baby's heartbeat irregular. Dr. Lena Brooks frowned at the monitor longer than she should have. "You've been under stress," she said carefully. Evlyn nodded. That's one word for it. Lena looked at her then, really looked. The soaked shoes, the exhaustion, the calm that didn't match the circumstances. "Do you have support?" she asked. Evlyn hesitated. "Yes," she said finally, "I do. I just haven't used it yet." That night, Evlyn made the first call she had avoided for years. The line picked up on the first ring. "Evlyn," her father said. No anger, no accusation, only relief wrapped in control. "I've been waiting." Her throat tightened, but her voice remained steady. "I'm done hiding," she said. "I need help." There was a pause, then, "Where are you?" Within hours, arrangements were made. Not dramatic, not loud, just efficient. That was how power worked when it didn't need to announce itself. Meanwhile, Daniel unraveled. At work, he snapped at colleagues, missed cues, made careless comments in meetings. Jeff noticed first. "You're off," Jeff said over drinks. "You good?" Daniel scoffed. "She's playing games, she'll come crawling back." But Evlyn didn't. Days passed, then weeks. Daniel found himself restless in bed, reaching across empty sheets out of habit. He missed the way Evlyn used to look at him, not with worship, but with understanding. The way she had once touched him, like she wasn't afraid of what she might find underneath his ambition. That absence unsettled him. He filled it poorly. Late nights, loud dinners, other women who laughed too hard and listened too little. None of them made him feel powerful the way Evlyn had, by choosing him. And that was the realization that irritated him most. Evlyn hadn't begged, she hadn't pleaded, she had walked away. That kind of rejection gnawed at men like Daniel. He tried to regain control the only way he knew how, through dominance. He sent lawyers to pressure her about divorce terms, threatened custody, used language meant to intimidate. The response came swiftly, and not from Evlyn. It came from a law firm Daniel recognized instantly, one that didn't take small clients. The letter was polite, brief, devastating. "All future communication regarding Mrs. Evlyn Hartwell will be handled through our office." Hartwell. The name struck something dormant in Daniel's mind. He Googled it and felt the ground shift. Hartwell Global wasn't just wealthy. It was untouchable. Jeff saw the color drain from Daniel's face. "What?" he asked. Daniel stared at the screen, pulse pounding. "No," he muttered. "That's not possible." But it was. Every promotion Daniel had fought for, every contract he boasted about, every deal he thought he earned on merit alone. They all existed in a world shaped by people like Evlyn's father, and Evlyn had been watching him all along, not plotting, learning. While Daniel panicked, Evlyn settled into a different rhythm entirely. A private residence, discreet medical care, calm voices, respectful distance. For the first time in months, her body relaxed. She felt desire again, not for a man, but for control, for certainty, for safety. When she looked in the mirror now, she didn't see a discarded wife. She saw a woman who had survived restraint. And restraint, she knew, was only impressive until it was removed. Daniel requested a meeting, begged for one, really. Evlyn agreed. On her terms, neutral ground, witnesses, time limited. When Daniel walked into the room and saw her, he froze. She looked radiant, not softer, but sharper, her posture straight, her gaze steady. Power sat on her like it had always belonged there. "You look well," he said awkwardly. Evlyn smiled faintly. "So do you," she replied. "Nervous suits you." He swallowed. "I didn't know," he said quickly. "About your family, about who you are." "That," Evlyn said calmly, "was your choice." Daniel reached for her hand. She stepped back. The distance was deliberate, controlled, final. "You wanted power," she continued. "You just never understood what it actually looks like." For the first time since the rain, Daniel felt it. Fear, not of loss, but of insignificance. Evlyn turned to leave. Behind her, a man who once believed dominance made him a king finally understood the truth. Power never needed him, and it had been sleeping beside him the entire time. Kim Moore had always believed power announced itself. It wore heels, spoke loudly, entered rooms first. So when the invitation arrived, heavy paper, no logos, no explanation, she assumed it was a mistake. Until she read the name, Evlyn Hartwell. Her fingers tightened around the envelope. That's not her name, Kim muttered, but it was. The meeting was scheduled at a private members' lounge overlooking the city, one Kim had never been able to access, no matter how many favors she called in. That alone unsettled her. She arrived early, dressed carefully, neutral colors, jewelry that whispered wealth rather than begged for it. When Evlyn entered, Kim didn't recognize her at first. The woman who stepped into the room moved differently. Not hurried, not hesitant. Her pregnancy was visible, yes, but it didn't slow her. If anything, it anchored her, grounding her presence with quiet authority. Evlyn wore a simple, tailored dress. No excess, no need. She didn't smile when she saw Kim. "Mrs. Moore," she said calmly, "thank you for coming." Kim stood, forced a smile. "Evlyn, I didn't realize you'd changed." Evlyn took her seat without responding. That was the first blow. Kim sat as well, irritation tightening her posture. "Daniel told me you were confused, emotional, that this situation—" "Daniel doesn't speak for me anymore," Evlyn interrupted gently. The gentleness made it worse. Kim's eyes flicked to Evlyn's belly. "I hope you're not using the child as leverage." Evlyn tilted her head slightly, studying Kim the way one might study a pattern already understood. "You've spent years mistaking cruelty for strength," she said. "That mistake ends today." Kim laughed sharply. "You think money makes you untouchable?" "No," Evlyn replied. "I know discretion does." She slid a thin folder across the table. Inside were records, conversations, financial traces, nothing illegal, everything humiliating. Kim's breath caught. "You've been watching us?" she asked. Evlyn folded her hands. "I've been protecting my family." There was a difference. Kim leaned back, trying to regain composure. "Daniel is my son." "I know," Evlyn said. "That's why I gave you this meeting." A pause. Then Evlyn continued, her voice lower now. "Intimate. Dangerous. You raised him to believe dominance was love. That control was masculinity. You rewarded him for humiliating others so he wouldn't feel small." Kim bristled. "You don't know what it's like to raise a man." Evlyn met her gaze fully. "I know exactly what it's like to raise power responsibly," she said. "My father taught me." That name, father, hung between them like a weapon. Kim swallowed. "What do you want?" she asked. Evlyn didn't hesitate. "Distance," she said, "silence, and for you to never question my motherhood again." "And if I don't?" Kim snapped. Evlyn smiled then, but there was no warmth in it. "Then your social circle will quietly forget your name," she said. "Your charities will lose funding. Your invitations will stop arriving." She leaned forward slightly. "And Daniel's career will end politely. Publicly respectable, privately irreversible." Kim felt cold. This wasn't rage, this was precision. Evlyn stood. "Daniel mistook access to my body for access to my power," she said. "You made the same mistake." As Evlyn turned to leave, Kim spoke, her voice brittle. "He loved you," she said. Evlyn paused. "He loved how I made him feel," she replied. "That isn't love." Later that evening, Daniel received a message from his mother. "Do not contact her again." He stared at the screen, stunned. At the same time, Evlyn stood alone on a balcony high above the city. The air was cool, quiet, clean. A man approached. Not Daniel. Tall, composed, familiar. Her father. "You handled that well," he said. "I learned from you," Evlyn replied. He glanced at her belly, his expression softened. "You ready for what comes next?" Evlyn nodded. "Power isn't loud," she said, "but it's about to be visible." She closed her eyes briefly, feeling her child move, steady, alive, safe. For the first time since the rain, desire stirred in her again. Not for domination, for agency, for choice. And somewhere below, a man who once believed he owned her body was finally beginning to understand. He had never even touched her real life. Daniel requested the meeting himself, not through lawyers, not through his mother. He sent the message late at night, when pride weakens and need speaks louder. "I need to see you, just once, not as lawyers, not as enemies, as us." Evlyn read it without expression. She didn't respond immediately. She waited 3 days. That delay alone did more damage to Daniel than any insult ever could. When she finally agreed, she chose the place. A private restaurant closed to the public for the evening. Candlelight, soft music, controlled environment, witnesses nearby but unseen. Daniel arrived early. He paced, adjusted his cufflinks, checked his reflection in dark glass. When Evlyn entered, the room seemed to recalibrate around her. She wore black, simple, elegant, the kind of dress that suggested restraint rather than invitation. Daniel stood automatically. "You look incredible," he said. Evlyn acknowledged the comment with a nod and took her seat. "Sit," she said. The word slipped out calmly, without force. Daniel obeyed before he realized he had. That unsettled him. They spoke at first about practicalities, divorce terms, custody frameworks, logistics. Evlyn was composed, clear, unemotional. Daniel felt himself losing ground, so he shifted tactics. "I miss you," he said quietly, "the way we were." Evlyn didn't answer. He leaned forward. "You were the only woman who ever made me feel steady." She met his eyes then, not cold, not warm, assessing. "You miss how I absorbed you," she said, "not who I am." Daniel swallowed. "You never told me who you were," he said. "You hid it." "I hid my last name," Evlyn replied, "not my values." He reached across the table, fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away. That was deliberate. Daniel felt a flicker of triumph. "You still feel it," he said softly. Evlyn allowed the contact to linger just long enough to confuse him. Then she gently withdrew her hand. "What you're feeling," she said, "is memory, not desire." The words hit harder than rejection. Daniel leaned back, frustrated. "You're punishing me." "No," Evlyn replied. "I'm no longer protecting you." He laughed bitterly. "You enjoy this?" Evlyn tilted her head. "Do you know what intimacy actually is?" Daniel didn't answer. "It isn't sex," she continued. "It's access, trust, the privilege of being seen without armor." She paused. "You had that, and you abused it." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I was under pressure," he said. "You don't understand what it's like." "I understand perfectly," Evlyn interrupted. "I was pregnant, exhausted, emotionally abandoned, and still I chose restraint." Silence stretched between them. Daniel's voice dropped. "I need you." Evlyn studied him, really studied him now. The ambition, the insecurity, the desire to be validated. "You don't need me," she said. "You need control." She stood. Daniel rose with her instinctively. "Evlyn," he said, his voice cracking. "We were good together." She stepped closer, not into his arms, but into his space. Close enough that he could smell her, feel her presence. "You mistook access to my body for ownership of my future," she said quietly. "That mistake is permanent." She stepped back. The spell broke. "I will raise our child with stability, dignity, and truth," she continued. "You may be part of that, if you earn it." Daniel stared at her. For the first time, he saw it clearly. Evlyn didn't need him, didn't crave him, didn't fear him, and nothing had ever made her more desirable or more unreachable. As she turned to leave, Daniel spoke one last time. "Was any of it real?" Evlyn paused. "Yes," she said, "which is why this hurts." She walked away. Daniel sat alone in candlelight, understanding finally dawning. Power didn't make Evlyn attractive. Her freedom did, and he would never touch it again. Daniel's fall didn't happen loudly. It happened politely. The way powerful institutions dismantle people without raising their voices. It began with a calendar invite, strategic review, attendance required. No agenda, no sender name. By the time Daniel entered the boardroom, he already sensed it. The air was too still, too controlled. Jeff sat 3 seats away, pale, eyes fixed on the table. At the head of the room sat 3 unfamiliar men and 1 woman, all calm, all disinterested. Daniel launched into his usual charm, statistics, optimism, projection. They let him finish. Then the woman spoke. "We'll be brief." She slid a document across the table. It wasn't an accusation. It was a conclusion. "Your position has become incompatible with our long-term partnerships." Daniel laughed nervously. "That doesn't make sense. I've exceeded every—" "This isn't performance-based," the man beside her said gently. "This is reputational." Daniel's mouth went dry. "Reputational?" he repeated. The woman nodded. "Your personal conduct reflects a pattern inconsistent with our values." Jeff swallowed hard. Daniel turned to him. "You knew?" Jeff didn't answer. That was answer enough. By noon, Daniel's access was revoked, his email disabled, his name quietly removed from projects he once led. No scandal, no fight, just erasure. He went to his mother. Kim didn't open the door at first. When she did, she looked smaller, uncertain, the sharp edges dulled. "They've stopped returning my calls," she whispered. "Every single one." Daniel's anger erupted. "What did you do?" Kim shook her head. "I didn't do anything." "She did." The word she carried fear now. They sat in silence. Then Kim broke. "We underestimated her," she said. "She doesn't need to punish us. She just removes us." Daniel ran his hands through his hair. "I need to talk to her." Kim grabbed his arm. "No, you need to survive." But Daniel was past survival. He needed absolution. He found Evlyn where she always was now, calm spaces, controlled access, quiet authority. He didn't announce himself. He waited. When she finally agreed to see him, it wasn't private. There were witnesses, lawyers, advisors, distance. Daniel stood across from her, stripped of posture, stripped of illusion. "I've lost everything," he said. Evlyn studied him. "No," she replied, "you've lost influence." "That's everything," he whispered. She shook her head. "No, your child is everything." The word hit him harder than termination ever could. "I was wrong," he said. "About you, about us, about what mattered." Evlyn nodded slowly. "I know." The simplicity of her agreement crushed him. "I'll do anything," Daniel said. "Therapy, transparency, change." Evlyn looked at him, truly looked. "I believe you're capable of growth," she said, "but growth doesn't guarantee access." His shoulders sagged. Kim's voice trembled when she spoke. "Please," she said, "we didn't know." Evlyn turned to her. "You knew enough," she said gently. "You just believed power would protect you." Silence. Then Evlyn stood. "My child will grow up knowing truth," she said. "Not bitterness, not lies." Daniel's voice broke. "Will you ever forgive me?" Evlyn paused. "Forgiveness," she said, "is private." She met his eyes. "Consequences are permanent." She walked away. Daniel collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. For the first time in his life, no one was watching. No one was impressed. No one was afraid. And that was the moment it finally hit him. He hadn't lost Evlyn because she was powerful. He lost her also because she outgrew him. Evlyn gave birth on a quiet morning. No cameras, no announcements, no dramatic arrivals. Just clean light spilling through tall windows and the steady presence of people who spoke softly and moved with purpose. The pain came in waves, deep, consuming, but it wasn't frightening. It was honest. When her child cried for the first time, Evlyn closed her eyes, not in relief. In recognition, this was the sound of something that belonged entirely to her. Her father stood nearby, hands clasped behind his back, watching without interference. He didn't rush forward. He didn't speak. He understood that this moment wasn't about lineage or legacy. It was about choice. Later, when the room was quiet again, Evlyn held her child against her chest. The warmth, the weight, the slow, steady breath. This was intimacy. Not possession, not domination, presence. Daniel was informed, formally, respectfully. He was offered visitation under clear conditions. Therapy, accountability, time, no shortcuts. He accepted everything without argument. Kim never asked to see the child, not because she didn't want to, but because she knew she hadn't earned it. Months passed. Evlyn returned to work, not dramatically, not loudly. She didn't sit at the head of tables. She listened, asked questions, made decisions that rippled quietly through industries. People noticed, not because she demanded attention, but because outcomes followed her. In interviews, when asked about balance, she spoke plainly. "Power without restraint is violence," she said once, "and restraint without dignity is submission. The work is knowing the difference." She never spoke about Daniel, not publicly, but sometimes, late at night, she thought about the woman she had been, the one who mistook silence for peace, patience for love. She didn't regret her. She honored her. Because that woman had survived long enough to become this one. One evening, Evlyn stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Rain began to fall, not violently, gently. She smiled faintly. The sound no longer triggered memory or pain, it was just weather now. Just water returning to earth. Her child slept inside, safe, secure, loved. That was what she chose to keep. Not revenge, not control, not the satisfaction of watching others fall. She kept her clarity. And somewhere below, Daniel Moore lived a smaller life, not ruined, not redeemed, just honest. Which, Evlyn knew, was the hardest consequence of all. She turned back inside as the rain continued to fall. This time, it wasn't punishment. It was closure. Comment and tell where you are watching from.